So, Natalie, welcome to the Born and Crave podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So, I wanted you here because so our audience is an audience of entrepreneurs who want to be entrepreneurs or who have a business but want to scale. So, one of the biggest goals of my audience is getting to their first $10,000 per month. That first 10K, I think it makes people believe that it's possible, right? And you're here because you hit that 10K mark, right? So was it the first time you did it, or tell me a little bit about that?
It was, I would say, my first official
As an entrepreneur.
time as an entrepreneur, hitting that mark.
Yeah. So that's why you're here, is because I want to talk about that. Talk about that story. Talk about where you came from and what you did to actually hit that mark, because I think it's going to be inspiring for the audience, because that 10K mark it could be kind of elusive, right? People think they can't hit it, but they can. So first of all, I've known you since you were maybe 12 years old, maybe?
When you
older?
came around, I think I was 11 or 12.
11 or 12.
Yeah, for sure.
I've known you for a long time, and I watched you grow and evolve. And now you're married, you have a family, you have kids. So it's really impressive, and I'm honored to be able to be part of your life. So, so talk to me. So talk to me about how you got into entrepreneurship, where the bug start, and then how you got to this point to where you are now. Where did I start for you?
Oh, wow. I have to get this out. I am so nervous telling my story on a platform like this. Like, not a lot of people know the full story. And so it's kind of vulnerable. But I'm excited to share it. And I do got to say, like, being a part, even how we met, being a part of Relevant drastically contributed to where I'm at right now, and even just getting bit by the entrepreneur bug. I grew up being super artistic. I always wanted to be an artist of some sort, a creative. And I was about 17 at the time, where I was playing around with photography, but I knew I wasn't passionate about photography. I just was good at it. And I was good enough at it to think maybe this is something that I can do. But then I discovered what I really, really wanted to do was actually be a creative director. And so the only way I knew how to do anything was to go to college, and somehow, some way, you're just going to end up at the job that you want to do. I didn't know what I needed to study. Like, there was no really stepping stones. I grew up believing that college was the way to get to the job or to the career that I wanted. And
that's most people, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, and I didn't question it. I just kind of just went with it. And I was being mentored, spiritually mentored, actually, by Harold, who was just on this studio the other day. And, he was guiding me through all of the things of just being a teenager in general. And one day, all of my clientele, my entire photography portfolio, was pretty much house parties of people getting drunk, of people dancing. It was really it was just a really ratchet portfolio. And he said, how are you ever going to get the clients that you want or step into the industry you want when your only portfolio, the only people who are going to hire you are people who want a photographer for their parties. And so he invited me to this e-commerce event, and I think it was the very first e-commerce event you guys ever put on. I think I was maybe 18 at the time, and asked me to just show up. I wouldn't have to pay if I just took pictures, and I was shadowing Ursel at the time. My first time ever taking photos in a space like that. But I remember the stuff that I was hearing and like the value, and it was like I was introduced to this entire world that I didn't even know existed. And the honest truth is, I didn't want it for myself. I actually wanted it for my brother.
Which one?
Noah, for his personal training business, because he lost over 80 pounds at this time. He wanted to be a personal trainer. I said, this is perfect. I'll learn the business side of things, and I just want to help him get his business rolling.
Right.
So I was in online college at the time, taking courses, but Harold told me to read .com Secrets by Russell Brunson. And I read that book book time and time again, I consumed every page. I studied the heck out of that thing because I was so amazed that this was the world. This was like an entire thing. Like, what the heck? What do you mean I can use social media to make money or to market? And so I studied it. And at the time, my brother was not prepared for the level of tenacity, the energy that I was coming with. He wasn't fully prepared for it. It was something I wanted. So the advice I got was, hey, like, why are you doing this for someone who doesn't want it? Like, why don't you start doing it for you? Yeah. And so I was working at a boba shop at the time. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job and try this social media thing. Wow. And so it was like one thing after another. And I actually wanted to work at T-Mobile. And they were about ready to hire me for like one of the highest volume stores in the district. And I went through like 3 or 4 different interviews with the district managers, all of the above. And they realized something messed up in their system and I didn't pass the assessment test. Really? So they were ready to make me an offer. And they said, technically, you have to take the assessment test first. You were supposed to take it. And it didn't end up happening. And so I was like, you were ready to hire me, but the computer said I wasn't built for sales, ironically. So
why do you think that happened? Like, tell me how you feel about that. Like, that the computer made an error. Like, what did you feel at that moment?
I felt like, what the fuck? Like, what? It made no sense to me because like 4 of their like district managers, I was interviewed by so many like people very established in their stores, and they had decided that I was fit for the job. Right. But then I took an assessment test. And I don't know how those assessment tests works, but I didn't pass. Right. And so they decided, like, we're not allowed to hire you because this is our policy. Yeah. And so you could try again in 6 months. And I'm like, I'm not going through this again in 6 months. No way. And I took it as a sign, like, I just was not meant to be there.
Yeah. And that was my question. Yeah. So you take it as a sign that this is confirmation. That you shouldn't be there. You should be doing your own thing or go and find something else.
Something I didn't know what at the time, but I knew I was ready for something else, like something more. So I did the social media thing, and like long story short, I went on a mission trip. I had all of these very spiritual revelations. God was really, really working like on my heart at this time, and I felt really called to full-time ministry. Okay. And I felt called to full-time ministry, but specifically, like the specific word I got from God was literally submit to your leaders, to Pastor Jonathan and Pastor Pauline, and be open to wherever they place you. These are the people that you need to submit to and you need to follow. I didn't know what that meant at the time. And so I just came to Pastor Jonathan and I was like, I had all these dreams and these visions that God gave me. And I really feel strongly this is where he's leading me. So I just want to be available. Yeah. Little did I know, Jonathan was testing me for like weeks, and I didn't know he was testing me. He just was asking me to do all these little things, and I was doing it. Yeah,
that's what he does.
And eventually, he came to me. He was like, "I really want you to work on the business side of things, and the business side of my life. I want you to work in that." And so, the door that was opened to me was the second I gave up doing it on my own, and I'm like, you know what, God, I'm just gonna follow you. Yeah. I'm just gonna do. Go where you call me to do, even if it means giving up what I want. Yeah. It ended up being the very thing that opened the door to like teaching me the exact skills and getting me seats at tables I was not qualified for through that entire process. Yeah. And so that was how I got bit by the bug, in a sense.
That's a great story. So how did you respond to the process? Because when you're doing something new, it could be uncomfortable, it can be scary. But most people, they give in to the fear more than what could happen, what's possible on the back end. So during that time, I mean, how did your body respond to, this is a new thing?
I feel like I was so equipped with the tests that were happening in the process and that in my personal life that making those steps was like nothing. Yeah. One of the things that Harold, when he was mentoring me, he had me do was he had me have a lot of really confronting conversations with people closest to me. I was getting a lot of anxiety at the time, and I was really questioning, like, God, what is happening with me? And so what I had realized in my conversations with him was that I was in the wrong romantic relationship with someone, and I was settling for good, not going for great or going for what was aligned with me. And I held a lot of resentment actually towards my dad.
Yeah.
And so the advice he gave me, he said, all of these things you're trying to do, you're going to screw it up if you don't deal with this resentment. It's going to affect everything that you touch. And I just believed him. Like I genuinely just believed him. And I didn't know why. I didn't know how it worked, or I didn't understand like why it would happen. I just knew like this is right. And I wanted what I had been exposed to so bad. I was such a big dreamer that I wasn't willing to compromise anything. And so the hardest thing I ever had to do was actually confront my dad about things that had happened in my past, in my childhood, that I had held on to for so long. And I literally had to go to him and I'm like, how am I supposed to have this conversation after 10 years? Like it's been so long. And Harold told me, he said, if you do this, and this is the hardest thing you have ever done, everything else after that will be good. You're going to have to have hard conversations. You're going to have to make hard decisions. But if you think this is the hardest thing you'll ever have to do, if you do it, then you'll be prepared to take on what comes next. And I talked to my dad. I broke up with my boyfriend at the time, and I was just like going for it.
Okay. Let me ask you this. So that's a major step, and I think a lot of people let fear keep them from making those steps. But when you did that, so your life before you talked to your dad, before you broke with your boyfriend, versus your life after, how did it change? Did you skyrocket and things changed, or was it a slow progression? How did things change versus having the conversations, not having them, and then having them?
I feel like those were very big turning points for me. It felt physically and emotionally like a drastic change. But I think it was just relief, to be honest. Like I wasn't carrying the weight of those things anymore. And I was free to figure out like me, and understand more about me, which really is what opened the door for it all. So
Right. Yeah, understanding you is important, and most people don't do that. They get stuck in what other people do and say and feel about who they are, right?
Yeah.
So you got the bug, and now you're working on the business side. And I'm not sure if Jonathan ever told you this, but he wants like 15 of you, right? Because of the work ethic and the creativity that comes with what you've learned. So you have the bug. You work. So tell me a little bit about where you start on the business side. Like where you start doing. What's your first initial task on the business side?
I think the first. I want to remember one of the first tests he gave me was to go on Fiverr and look for someone with a voice, a specific kind of voice or something like that.
Samuel Jackson voice?
Yes,
I think it was. I remember that for church, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
he was like, I want you to find a Samuel L. Jackson voice on Fiverr. And I was like, I've never done this before. Yeah. But he just kept asking me to do things I'd never done before. Yeah. And I was so eager to like over deliver that I did whatever I needed to do. I Googled whatever I needed to do without excuses. And then the first thing he made me do, I think it was the first like official thing, was actually creating a giveaway campaign. Okay. And I don't remember what platform I used. Yeah. But he was like, hey, watch these videos and then I want you to do it. Yeah. And so that has just been my entire work relationship with Jonathan has been, hey, watch these videos and then do it.
So you conquered that one thing, but then where did the eagerness come from? The eagerness to learn and to dive in. Where did that come from? Where do you think it came from?
I honestly feel like I was consistently surrounded and doing things that inspired me.
Oh, like that.
I don't think it's just like this special thing about myself that like, oh, I'm just this special person who has this unlimited motivation. But the habits that I was implementing and the people I was being surrounded by, it was like I was in a constant zone of inspired,
Right.
and it made me eager for more. And the more that I practiced, the more inspired I got, and it just fed off of each other.
Yeah. Well, talk to me more about the inspiration, because inspiration is huge. Motivation, inspiration is different from me. Like motivation is something that's short-lived, but inspiration is something that can last a lifetime.
Yeah.
So tell me about the inspiration that you had and how that pushed you.
I think it was just the possibility of it all.
Yeah.
And it was so different than what I had believed growing up. And it challenged me. So, and honestly, it was a lot of fun. Like, I found genuine enjoyment in the things that I was learning, and I was fascinated with it.
Right.
Whether that's God-given or not, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, having those habits, it just, I don't know. It was just, I was constantly inspired.
Yeah. So let's talk about focus. I've never met anyone your age that has a level of focus that you have, and it's pretty damn impressive, right? It is. People always tell me that I have RBF, and I think you have a level of it too. Right?
I definitely do.
Yeah, and doesn't mean. Well, it means for me, it's an intense focus, right? So one, do you recognize that, and then two, how did you become so damn focused?
Oh man, I feel like this one's a little bit easier for me. I for sure recognize that I have RBF, especially when I'm focused.
Right.
And I know this about myself. I know that I have like tunnel vision. I'm not a great multitasker because I have like tunnel vision. And I feel like the biggest thing that contributes to like my focus is honestly just clearing out the noise, like all the unnecessary shit. Like I'm to be my age in my specific situation, I don't have like all the hours in the day to do everything that I feel convicted to do as a mother, as a wife, in ministry, as an employee, to be running a business at the same time. Like there can't be anything extra and unnecessary. And so I feel like, the biggest thing, I feel like early on, it was easier for me, and I learned to really fit my day and like just my habits and my lifestyle and my environment to be fully aligned with where I know that I want to go. I was willing to make those sacrifices and make those changes because I knew what it would result in, and I knew what not making those changes would result in. That there was no other way that I could live in. And honestly, that's just what I wanted. And I think that made the biggest difference, where it was easier because I wanted the life that I want to create. I wanted more than the extra stuff that I was just doing for the moment. And so, even to this day, that's something I stand firm by.
So what is the life you want to create?
I want to be a woman who does all the things. I believe that we were created for abundance, and I know that it's possible, but I don't necessarily have I don't have somebody in my life who has been that example to me, who has been in my exact situation. But I have these very strong convictions, and I know these convictions don't come from nowhere. I really trust and believe that they come from God. So if this is my conviction that I need to be an excellent mother, an excellent servant, an excellent businesswoman, whatever that looks like, I believe that it is possible. And it's just figuring out how now and taking it one step at a time.
So are you crystal clear on what you're creating, what you want, and what those convictions are? Do you know exactly? Can you see it? Because I'm a big believer in you gotta be able to see what you want before you can actually have it, right? And it doesn't mean you gotta see the whole picture play out, but have some mental clarity on where you want to go. And are you clear with that?
I would say it's hard for me because it does. I do feel clear about myself and who I am. And I am open to that vision changing as I continue to grow and change. I'm open to adapting as unforeseen circumstances, because the vision I have for my life now looks a lot different 2 years ago when I wasn't a mom, you know? And so I think becoming a mom has allowed me to be more adaptable. And I think the thing that I want to be really clear on, and the thing that's important for me to be really clear on, is who am I designed to be? And out of who I am, what can I create now? And just going from there.
So you can give me questions to ask. So who are you designed to be?
I'm going back to revealed now. I'm a powerful, passionate, and intuitive woman. That was that was the intention that I set. I think I'm designed to walk in the identity that, to be an example, that it's possible to walk in the identity and the promises that God has always given us, not just as a servant, not just as a generous person, not just as someone with a willing heart, but like as a daughter, and as a daughter of a heavenly Father who adores her and wants all the things for her and uses everything for her good. So that kind of life, it's like something you hear all the time growing up. It's something people say, but I want to be an example of what that can actually look like in real time now, not when we die and go to heaven, you know?
So managing negativity is something that's it's pretty challenging, right? And how do you manage being possible with we'll be surrounded by negativity all the time? I mean, I know it's not all the time, but sometimes we just can't help being around negative things, negative people, TV, social media. How do you manage that?
I monitor my consumption. I feel like that's a simple way. If anything triggers me even or feeds into any kind of negative thoughts online or causes me to exert unnecessary negative energy that's not teaching me something or challenging me in a positive way, I just mute it. I block it. I unfollow. And even in my friendships, in my relationships, I genuinely just limit the amount of time I allow negative people to be around me. And I feel like checking in with myself is the biggest thing. It's easy to blame negativity on the outside external sources all the time and be like, oh, I can't be around toxic people. But, you know, especially in this culture, especially my age in this generation that I live in, like, but learning when I'm the one who's feeding into my own negativity, recognizing when I'm my biggest enemy when it comes to being in those environments or being around those people, when I'm being cynical even or judgmental based off of what's going on internally that I'm projecting onto other people. I feel like just taking a moment to really recognize like what's actually happening inside of me when I'm feeling those moments and what do I have control over into create something different or to tell myself a different story.
Key thing you said is recognizing that it's you, right? And you're not blaming anybody else. It's like, I'm this way because it's me. I have control whether I accept it or not, right? So I know this episode was about you hitting your first $10,000 per month. But I think it's important that people recognize it's not just about the money or the vehicle. It's about how you set your mindset up to actually get to that point.
Absolutely.
And that's why we took time and like answered the questions and figured out, you know, what was the big part of you getting there. And it was your mindset. It was your mindset in recognizing that you are in control and of what you create, because what we have and don't have is a result of our creation. Right?
Absolutely.
So if we can create what we don't want, I believe we can create what we do want. Right. So now let's get to the good part and that first $10,000 per month. All right. So tell me first, what is your core business? Like, what do you do to make money? And then let's talk about how you got to that point.
So the real moneymaker, I mean, I advertise general digital marketing services, but the honest truth, the real moneymaker is I design funnels, sales funnels, and most of the time it's using ClickFunnels as a platform. But I also do graphic design. I'm all around, but the thing that I enjoy doing the most, and the thing that makes the most money with the least amount of time of my time is sales funnels.
Sales funnels. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how do you go about getting your clients for sales funnels? Well, any client. How are you getting your clients?
Most of my clients that I get, thankfully, is actually just through word of mouth, relationship equity, because it's a medium ticket service.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to make 10K with less clients.
Right.
But finding those clients who are willing to invest that amount of money for a service, word of mouth has been my winner, and relationship equity all day.
Yeah, right. And it definitely works. So tell me a bit how that felt to actually hit that 10K mark, really more about you earning it yourself, right? Without someone giving you a handout or going to apply for a job. You made that money yourself working and putting in that work. So tell me how that felt.
I was like terrified. I'm not even going to lie. I did it, and I've always known that I could, and I always believed that I would.
Yeah.
But when I hit that milestone, it really exposed the fears and the fears and the insecurities I have in myself about money. I feel like it's just been such a major lesson for me in just believing that I am worth enjoying the fruits of my labor, or the fact that I not just that I can do it, but that I also am valuable and worthy enough to do it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how insecure I was around money. So the first thing I felt genuinely was fear. I didn't want to mess up or waste away or misuse the money that I had earned and received.
Yeah. Most people, their goal is to be rich and make money and have everything they want. So talk to me about the insecurities. Like what is that about? Because we all want money, right? So how the insecurities come into play into your fear? And what are they, if you don't mind me asking?
I didn't want to be a fraud. I didn't feel like I made a post about this on Instagram. Like my first 10K, and it's the first time I'd ever bought anything really nice for myself ever. I'd done really close to 10K multiple times, but the first time I actually hit that milestone, just the extra $1,000 or few $100s that makes it a milestone. It was the first time I decided that I was gonna actually spend on something really nice for myself. And I felt guilt and shame even entertaining that thought. Because if I carry this nice bag around, if I carry this, and it's not even like it's not even the super high-end designer, but just even something that even portrays just a little bit of status or money. I didn't want people to view me or see me as a fraud. I didn't want to be exposed for being a fraud or flexing something that I wasn't really about. And I was afraid that I think one of the major things too, I was honestly genuinely afraid of not being a good steward. I'm all about, my faith. Everything that I do always goes back to why am I doing it? And I didn't want to get too excited or do anything that would cause me to steward my money poorly. But because I'd never had that much money to even invest or to even use, I've never touched that much before at one time, that I didn't know what to do with it. I knew there was a million things I could, but I had no idea where to start. So it was forcing me to step into like truly an unknown. Like if I'm going to steward this money well, and if I'm going to scale this, I have to do something that I've never done before. And that might risk losing it all too. And so all of those feelings was what I felt.
Yeah, the unknown is a scary place, right? But what I've discovered is that the unknown is where you create. Right, because it's like a blank slate. There's something there, so you can create in the unknown. And you were fearful to go out and take care of yourself. Did you actually do it?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you push past that fear? What made you say, you know what, I feel this way, but because for me, the cure for fear is action. Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. So what made you push past that fear? Like, you know what, just fuck it. I'm just going to do it because this is what I want for myself.
It was literally that. Like, I knew that when I invested in myself, it would put forth energy to believe more about myself than I've believed before.
Right.
I know that there's going to come a day where I don't want to be a service provider anymore.
Right.
I want to do the damn thing for myself. I want to create the sales funnel, start my own business, do all of those things. But I also know that's gonna force me to actually really invest in myself.
Right.
It's easy for me to put 110% into somebody else's business. And I realized that if I'm continuing to invest in myself and believe that I'm a high value woman who deserves these things, and also just decide that I was going to make it again.
Right.
And I wasn't really going to lose anything. Nobody else was going to lose anything. That was what changed it for me. Is just remembering that and deciding, like, I'm going to make this again.
Right.
And even more so, like, I had a belief that it exposed was that if I spend on myself, that means it's being stolen for something that I can do for somebody else. And I thought that buying a bag for me meant that this means that I can't help somebody. I'm stealing from somebody else's blessing because I want to be blessed myself. And that was such a lie. I didn't even realize that's what I believed. And I always it's always during this time of year too. During the holiday season, we do all these community projects, and I really had to question, like, do I really believe in abundance? Like, do I actually believe that God can use me to bless other people and myself, that God is working through me and for me too, that I can have both. And so when I believed and I made that step, it forced me to say, no, I'm going to choose to believe that I can have both. I can bless others
both.
and have it all.
There's no either or. You can have both.
Have both.
It's amazing the stories that we create.
Yeah.
In our mind, and it's all false stuff. I mean, we create stuff that hasn't even happened. Right. It's amazing. I had a question for you, but I forgot what it was. So, so making your first 10K per month, making $1 million a month, making whatever, to me, it has less to do with the actual vehicle. It has to do with, like, what you believe in yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Because you said that, you're a high value woman, and people who don't consider themselves high value, I don't think they can ever get to that 10K mark, 15K mark, or 10K and beyond. I don't think they can, because you have to be at a certain mental level and believing in what you can do, who you are, and what you can offer. And it's really not about the actual activity or the vehicle. You chose a life. You chose to stand. You chose to change your mindset. You chose to get rid of all the limiting beliefs that you have. And even though they may come back from time to time, you know what you want.
Yeah.
And I believe that's the reason that you made that first 10K, and you're going to go way beyond that. And the tool is just the funnels, or the tool can be, an e-com store. A tool can be whatever, but it's the level of belief that you have in yourself, and pushing through that fear, because I don't believe that fear and courage is an absence of it. It's like it's there, you recognize it, and you push through no matter what, because it's not going nowhere. I think that Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, whoever, I think they have fear still, right?
Yeah.
But they push through it, and they proceed no matter what, right? So next question is mentorship, right? Do you believe in mentorship? And
you already know. You already know.
I know, but this is for the audience. And how important has mentorship played in your ability to change your mindset and hit that first 10K?
Like, oh my gosh, nothing that I have accomplished or learned had it not been I had somebody to trust, and that I gave permission to tell me about myself in even challenging ways. Harold was really dope because we'd actually grown up together. So as he was going through his entrepreneurial journey, I was being introduced to it, but he watched me from like a baby grow up. So like he knew me at a different level, and he saw things in me that I was blind to because of the context that we came from, growing up together. So valuing and knowing when to trust somebody else to tell me things that are difficult, and knowing when to trust to and allow somebody else to speak into my life in a way that challenges me to grow and to do scary things, I feel like was everything. And I don't think people my age have enough of those people. So yeah, being teachable and being a sponge, no matter who it's coming from, I feel like is what makes the difference between someone who can create the mindset of having 10K and someone who doesn't. Because most of us don't start off with that mindset. It's something that has to be developed. And I feel like without having those people, like you are not going to develop the mindset without being fully teachable.
And you got to remain teachable, like throughout your career, because there are different levels to this. So you got to remain teachable. Give me your top 3 books.
The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That book, oh my gosh, changed my life in so many ways. I go back to that book when I find myself not being aligned with who I know I am. That one, the Bible.
The Bible?
That's a good one. This is a hard question for me. I have so many.
You mentioned one earlier already.
But the 7 Habits, I feel like that one, the principles in that one is one I can go back to over and over again.
Congratulations on what you've done. I mean, just like watching you grow over the years has been truly a blessing for me and my family. So you have 2 kids and you have a husband.
Yes, sir.
And how was that experience now, being in entrepreneurship, being able to actually be a blessing to your own family, right? How has that changed you and changed your family and your outlook for the future?
Oh, man. I feel like, well, for one, I got married 2 weeks after I found out I was pregnant. And only 1 year of really dating Miles. We had decided we wanted to get married months into our relationship, not even. And so it all happened really fast. I think I was 20. I was 20 years old when I got pregnant. So it changed everything. Like I wasn't even thinking about marriage and kids like happening anytime soon. But it happened. And I feel like it was probably the most difficult thing that I've had to go through the past couple years, because it exposes the heck out of you. It just exposes you so hard. Like becoming a mom as an entrepreneur and a wife as an entrepreneur in ministry, I realized that I had no idea who I really was. I thought I was somebody I wasn't. And I believed the mask that I was wearing my first year of entrepreneurship. So being exposed like that was very humbling. It really ate at my ego. And I had to really like push through and do the inner work to even get back in to anything other than just being a mom and a wife. So it's different now because I feel like there's a level of resilience that can only be birthed through motherhood, to be honest. There's a level of grit and just a deeper reason, like why. And so just remembering that I have a family, I already feel wealthy with them. I already feel like they were my answered prayers. This is with them, with an amazing husband and beautiful children, I feel like I am living the life of my dreams now.
I love it.
So it's like I've learned that I don't have to keep striving. That I've made a decision.
Yeah.
We're gonna be multimillionaires. I've made a decision.
We're gonna make.
I've already decided this is the life that I'm gonna create.
Yeah.
And I love what Shamika Tinkerson said at the mansion the other day. She said, once you decide, you know, time's not my business, it's God's. You know, and so it's just a matter of time. When that decision just catches up to what you're experiencing currently.
Yeah.
And so that just means that I get to fully enjoy my family and fully enjoy the life that I have now, and then just continue to go through that experience every single day.
You started by saying you're nervous. There's not one nerve in your body. You are flowing and preaching and just you're teaching me right now.
Man.
That's amazing. So there are people out there right now who are kind of stuck, right? Stuck and not sure, like, what's the first step? I'm watching this podcast, and you know, I have a business, I have an idea, but I just don't know how to get started. And I ask every guest this question because every guest has a different perspective, right? So give us 3 action steps that someone can take right now to actually start the process and get going to achieving the dreams that they want to accomplish.
The first thing that I see, this is weird. I'm seeing a naturopath practitioner right now, so I'm like comparing it in terms of healing your body,
please,
and creating a better body. Detoxification, I feel like, is the word that comes to mind. Not in the sense where you're removing all the bad in you, but I feel like it starts with removing the bad externally. The first thing that you can do is stop exposing yourself or being around. Change your environment. Pretty much. Change the people you talk to, the people you take advice from. Cut out all of the unnecessary things that feed into the life that you don't want. And number 2 would be start surrounding yourself every single day, every single week, as often as you can with people who are living and believe in the life that you do want to create. That's step 1 and 2. And step 3 would just be to be ready to take major action. It's just go for it. Once you're around those people, like once you're in those environments, it drastically changes everything, I think, because you're being exposed to the possibility, you're being inspired. And at that point, it doesn't matter which vehicle you use. You just make a decision and you go for it. And even if it's the wrong one, just keep going, you know, like just keep going for it.
Just pivot.
Pivot.
I love it. Take action. I mean, these things are simple to do, but simple not to do, right? So, but just decide and take action. So with that, how do we locate you? How do we find you? Someone wants to get a funnel done right now. How do we find you? Get that funnel done, because we got to keep this 10K thing going.
Oh man, you can find me on Instagram, the Natalie Magee. My website's under construction, but you can always shoot me a DM in there, and let's just leave it at that one.
Okay, perfect. So hopefully by the time we air it, it'll be done. We can put the links down below.
Yeah,
we'll do that. So give us some wisdom in closing.
Vague questions like this is my downfall. Some wisdom in
you
closing.
Shining, girl. You are shining on this episode. So you are
man.
Shining, you know. What's been your biggest aha moment in entrepreneurship?
I think just what's relevant to my biggest aha moment the past couple of years is compassion for myself. Compassion. It takes it to a whole different level when the Bible says and God says grace is sufficient enough. Because if I had not had compassion for myself, I wouldn't be fueled forward to keep going. I wouldn't be empowered to believe more, that there's more for myself, that this is not the end of the story. I wouldn't have been able to heal from all of the childhood trauma. I feel like learning to receive compassion from the source and then to receive it and extend it towards yourself, I feel like will change your relationships, will change your business. It will change everything. It starts with just grace, compassion.
I love it.
Yeah.
This was one of my favorite episodes. So thank you for blessing me and blessing us with this time. As you grow, I want to have you back to come back on and teach and just follow what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. And one last question is that what is next for you in your journey?
I would really love to hire an employee. Okay. And my dream brand is one named after my son. And so I feel like what's next for my journey is really nailing down the vision for that. But having a brand called the CRE8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before, right? Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming. You totally blessed us. And yeah, so that's it. We'll let you get back to work. Thank you for sharing. But thank you for being on board with Nat. I appreciate your time. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks for having me. Making me be uncomfortable.